It's Monday, December 20th, 2010. I'm Kevin McShann, and this is the McShann Sports Beat Report.
Hi, we welcome you to a very special edition of Game Time. Vince Giolini sitting in alongside 3D, Dennis Scott and Azar, Mike Fratello. David Aldridge will be by in just a moment. Hey guys, I'm glad I dropped by today. Some things were happening. We had NBA trades of the Blockbuster variety. Where do we begin? Let's begin right here with the Orlando Magic and Phoenix Suns. It went down like this. Heading to Orlando, going back, Hedo Turkoglu, along with Jason Richardson and second-year center Earl Clark. Going to Phoenix, Vince Carter, Marcin Gortat, and Mickael Pietrus. And they'll get a future first-round pick, will the Phoenix Suns, and $3 million cash as reported. Now, we also had another deal involving the Orlando Magic. This was Gilbert Arenas going from the Washington Wizards to the Magic, reunited with Otis Smith, the general manager in Orlando. And Rashard Lewis will be heading from Central Florida to Washington, D.C. Lots to talk about. Where do we start? Let's start with Orlando, a team that was wondering if indeed they could win the Eastern Conference and get out. They made huge changes now. Mike, I'll start with you. Impressions of this trade.
I think both teams had a similar goal in mind, but coming from a little bit different perspective. Orlando looked around and said, you know what, we're not better than Boston, we're not better than Miami right now. So what are we going to play for in the end if we don't make the change and shake it up a little bit? So they were willing to take the gamble, and this is a gamble on everyone's part. Phoenix, on the other hand, same situation, but not playing for 1, 2, or 3. They're playing to try and get into the playoffs, so they were willing to shake it up there. You had some players who were not playing up to their expectations on both teams. They kind of swapped uniforms there. Money was a consideration, expiring contracts a consideration.
And sort of a fait accompli, I would think, for Gilbert Arenas 3D to a certain extent. Once John Wall was picked at the top, eventually something was going to have to give, and it gave today.
No question about it. And I think Otis Smith and Gilbert being in the Golden State a few years ago, they had that relationship. So there is a certain comfort level with Gilbert and Otis Smith. The question is now, is Gilbert going to be healthy? And is he going to come to Orlando with the right frame of mind? And I think Stan Van Gundy has nipped all the controversy in the bud right away. Jameer Nelson will be starting. If you remember when Jameer got hurt, was having an all-star year, the year they went to the finals, he came back. With Rafe Alston, they inserted him back into the starting lineup for Game 7. We can't think of Game 6. So the bottom line is Stan Van Gundy is more comfortable with Jameer being the starter.
Sometimes an infusion of new blood is just what the doctor ordered when you're trying to provide your team with a spark and attempting to put an end to a stagnant pattern of behavior. For the Orlando Magic, losers of 5 of their last 6 contests, they decided on Saturday it was time for a cosmic shift in philosophy and a makeover of their roster in an attempt to save their early season and playoff hopes. The overhaul of the roster in Central Florida is a major move for a franchise that began the season believing that they could contend for a title. However, the Magic have dropped from first to fourth in the Eastern Conference, and the slide has been magnified by winning streaks of 11 by the Miami Heat and 12 by the Boston Celtics, forcing the hand of Magic General Manager Otis Smith to make some much-needed changes in order to inject some life into a lifeless team. The trades will also reunite Arenas with Richardson. The pair played together early in their careers with the Golden State Warriors. As for the Wizards, both the team and Arenas have been open to parting ways ever since Washington acquired the services of point guard John Wall with the #1 overall pick in the 2010 NBA Draft. Arenas was suspended 50 games by Commissioner David Stern for a locker room incident involving gunplay with former teammate Javaris Crittenton, which came to light last December 23rd. Wizards president Ernie Grunfeld and Magic general manager Otis Smith discussed the trade and the ramifications it'll have for all three teams involved.
Gilbert was really the first player I signed when I got here almost 8 years ago, and he did a lot for this organization, but I think it was time for a change. This will be a good opportunity for him to go down to Orlando to revitalize his career, and it's obviously we've said all along that we're rebuilding, and we're going to do it with youth. And John is going to be the focal point of that, and I think this allows that to happen much easier. I think we could have moved forward with, and we had been moving forward with him, but when this opportunity presented itself, we just felt like it was a better opportunity for us to move forward and try to accomplish the things that we're trying to accomplish in the long term. That was just natural because Gilbert had a relationship with Otis for a long time back to the Golden State days, and this was the first team that aggressively wanted to make some changes. Rumors would always come around December 15th when players could be aggregated, and all the players that signed this summer now are tradable. So a lot of things now floating around. There's a lot of teams that are actively pursuing certain things, and Orlando was the first team that aggressively went out and really wanted to change the makeup of that team. I mean, it's a bold move. Not only did they make this move, but they also made a move with Phoenix. So they've really changed their whole team around.
I thought we needed to score. We needed a little bit more punch. All those guys come in and have the ability to move the ball and score the ball. At the same time, as I said earlier, looking at our team, pretty much through 25 games, we were missing a little something. Do I expect him to be a distraction? No, I don't. I actually don't at all. What Arenas will bring to this team is a little bit tougher than somebody who can score the ball. His off-the-court issues, we have a tendency not to forgive people in this country. We have a tendency to hold on to things a little bit longer, particularly if they play professional sports. And I always say that sometimes good people do stupid things, and that was right at the top of the list. But I feel comfortable with who he is. I've been knowing him since he was 19 years old. I'm more comfortable with him than I am with a lot of people.
Magic head coach Stan Van Gundy reflects on the moves that his team has made, discusses the contributions of the players who the Magic have sent packing, and also provides some insight on how he and his coaching staff plan on integrating all the new pieces to the puzzle.
Well, look, I think that as far as how we're going to work them in, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge right now. Obviously being right in the middle of things where we're not, in a break where we get a lot of practice time. These guys will probably play 2 games before they even have a practice with us. So as far as working them in, it's going to be on the fly. I think first thing to me about the trade, and it's every trade I've ever been a part of, I really think about the guys that we traded out of here. And again, I'm not dwelling on that, but those guys have done a lot here for our organization. Marcin, when I first got here, he was playing summer league, and we were trying to decide if we even wanted to, bring him back and to see his growth over the 3.5 years has been tremendous. He's a guy who's really wanted more of an opportunity to play. Playing behind Dwight was very, very difficult for him, and so he gets the opportunity, and for that I'm happy for him. I hope he makes the most of it. He's a guy that's done a lot for us. I don't think, we probably could have made it through the Charlotte series last year had it not been for him. So I have great appreciation for him and hope he does well. MP has obviously been a big part of what we've done the last 2 years, particularly in the playoffs. A guy not afraid to take big shots and make big shots and seem to be at his best in the biggest moments. And, he's had a tough time with injuries lately here, but again, a guy who's done a lot for us. And then I think Vince, came in a tough situation. Vince was a guy who had always had to carry the load, and then he had to try to fit in. I think he's a great pro, very, very smart, does everything he asks, and couldn't have done a better job for us. And then the one with me, I got to say, I've been involved in a lot of these, and I've always really had great appreciation for what players have done, the teams I've been a part of. And so I've always felt badly when people have left, but with Rashard, this one probably is one of the hardest ones I've been a part of, because if not the hardest one. Because I think a lot of things with Rashard, number one, I think he's the guy most responsible probably for turning this around. If you look at when he came and when others signed him, they'd come off of 40 wins and get swept in the first round. Grant left, Milicic left, Tony Petit got hurt, and Rashard came in. That was really it, the extent of the move. And with those three guys going out and him coming in, you're 52 wins next year, second round, and then on to the finals. And a guy who changed positions when he came here, never griped about anything. One of the best team players that I've ever been around, cared about nothing but trying to win games, would do everything he was asked. It's really with all of those guys, but probably with him even more. An absolute honor and privilege to have coached him. And so it's not easy to see those guys go. I like what we have done in the deals, I really do, but it's still it's not easy to see those guys go. These are guys that come in here and work their butts off every single day, make sacrifices, everything else, and for the good of the group. And so I have great respect for all of them, and it'll be strange not having them around.
The Orlando Magic came to a fairly obvious conclusion. Their current roster simply wasn't good enough to compete with the elite in the Eastern Conference. As a result, they've given their roster a dramatic facelift and traded away some valuable pieces to their success over the last few years. But as we know, this is a results-oriented business, and simply put, Orlando hasn't been getting the job done lately. For the Magic, it all centers around one player, number 12, Dwight Howard, who is scheduled to be a free agent at the end of the 2012 season, and the team needs to make sure they do everything in their power to get Howard to sign that extension in the summer of 2012. So yes, this is a bold move, but one Orlando had to make in order to make sure their playoff chances don't disappear into thin air, and to make sure their centerpiece of their franchise stays put. Orlando is now in a state of transition, so we'll all be watching to see if this radical transformation was worth such the steep price that Orlando had to pay, and whether or not it turns around their fortunes. Kevin McShann, Sports Beat, report.